welcome to the LiveTap podcast. I'm your host, Damian Trailer, and as y'all know, it's Alumni Week, and I got Brook Patton on the pod. Welcome to the show, Brook.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. But Brook, before we start the episode, can you tell me when you were here, your major, class of graduation, and what sports you played when you were at Piedmont?
Okay, so I got to Piedmont in 2020. So I was here from 20 to 24. I graduated last May of 24. I was a bio major, chemistry minor, and I played tennis.
Tennis?
Yes.
That's what's up for sure. First question of the pod. Well, with it being almost a year since you graduated, how has life been, and what do you do on your day-to-day basis?
Life is good. It's definitely a lot different. It's been a pretty drastic change of pace since I graduated. Transitioning from being a college student and a college athlete to being in the real world and working on the day-to-day. It's a lot different, but I've been able to adjust pretty well, and things have been going pretty good. I'm just working. Work at a dental office over in Cornelia, so that's been awesome. Yeah, I did some undergraduate shadowing over there, trying to prepare for dental school. So they were able to offer me a job when I graduated last May, so that worked out really well.
Yeah, growing up for you, was dental, like trying to be a dentist, was that always like something for you, or that kind of just?
I can't remember or pinpoint exactly when I decided that's what I wanted to do, but coming into college, you kind of have to figure out, something that you want to do as far as, deciding your major. And I wanted to do something that played to my academic strengths, but I also knew that I would be able to apply successfully post-grad. So I feel like that's kind of how I fell into the field. I knew I had some strength in like the science area, so, I started my bio major and everything, and then the more I looked into, the field of dentistry, I realized that I thought it would be a pretty good fit for me, and so far that's proven to be true. So I think it was a pretty good decision.
No, for sure. A couple months back, you and the tennis team from last year received y'all championship rings. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
How did it feel to receive those rings with your former teammates?
It was awesome. We had one or two ring ceremonies before. We were rolling, so it was a good experience for me while I was here at Piedmont. But I think this past year was a little bit different because I had been graduated for a little while, so it was really nice to get to reconnect with all my former teammates and everything, and celebrate one last time with everybody. So it was great. It was a really, really good experience.
No, for sure, man. I remember, I think I was broadcasting the basketball game. Y'all got it at halftime or before the boys' game?
Halftime.
Yeah. Yeah. So I remember seeing all y'all. It was really good to see a lot of y'all too. Cause I seen Daisha too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of y'all I haven't seen.
Colorado girl. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of y'all in a minute, but it was good to see y'all. But I have another question. With that being said, the girls tennis team this year, they're on a pretty good roll once again. They're undefeated in conference, and I think conference play starts today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it does. They're in Chattanooga right now, playing for the ring. So
would that, if they win the CCS tournament again, would that be their 5th consecutive tournament?
It'll be the 4th.
4th?
Mm-hmm. So my freshman year, 2020, we lost to NC Wesleyan. It was a pretty sad loss. We had some really strong and good upperclassmen that year that were going out, really hoping to win that year. But NC Wesleyan, they had a really, really great team, a lot of foreign girls that year, so we weren't able to take the championship. But we did win 21 through 24, so if they win this year, it'll be Trey's 4th ring in a row.
No, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's rolling.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That is actually crazy, I'm not going to lie. But on to the sports questions, Brook. When you were an athlete here at Piedmont, how did you juggle the student-athlete lifestyle?
I would say it was definitely, a little bit difficult at times, especially, when you have a rigorous major and, you're trying to balance that with a sport that you really care about and want to be dedicated to, and, you're going back and forth between class and studying and practice and lifts and all that type of stuff. It definitely can be difficult, but fortunately I had a coach who, really wanted us to be successful in all areas, not only on the tennis court, but also in the classroom. So I think I was able to be successful because, he really allowed us to have some flexibility in that way. So, if we needed to prioritize our schoolwork, he allowed us to do that. And so that really helped me a lot. And just, he kind of let us have fun on the court, which was awesome, especially at the D3 level, because that's really what it's about, the experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, y'all have always been like a close-knit team since last year, and y'all even more close-knit this year. I mean, you're not here, but
I know, it's so sad.
Yeah, facts. I seen y'all a couple weeks back at was it Alumni
The Alumni Day.
Yeah,
they do once a year at a spring match. They host an Alumni Day, so they invite all the alumni back. So it was really great this past year because everybody committed to coming and My graduating class, I was really blessed because we were all really close. There was a lot of guys that came in my class and a lot of girls, and we all got along great, and we were all super close all the way through. So we all, committed to coming this year, and so we had a big reunion a couple weeks ago, and it was awesome. A lot of the alumni actually rented a cabin over in Clarksville.
Oh, really?
Yes, hung out all weekend, so it was awesome, and it just goes to show, like, the strong connections that you can make, at places like this, and we were just really blessed, honestly, because we had a great group of people at my time here.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember seeing all of my guys, Jack.
Yeah, great people. Some good people.
But my next question, though, did you ever struggle with time management as a student athlete?
Yeah, I would say definitely more so my freshman year. When I got here, I was already a little burnt out from high school. We had been dealing with COVID, and, coming into college, you already don't really know what to expect. And then, you have a workload that's, it's just a different level than high school. So I found that I struggled, a good bit with that my freshman year. But, Trey had us in study hall. We were in there 5 hours a week. He was making sure we were getting our stuff done. So that definitely helped me a lot. And I was able to, by my sophomore year, kind of get a better routine going. I got my planner, and I had a routine with that. So, yeah, it was all about just figuring out the routine, honestly. And then I feel like that really paved the way for success for me going into the last 3 years of college.
No, I'm not mistaken. You said you came in during that COVID year, right?
Yeah, I did. So I graduated high school in 2020. So 2 months after COVID, we had like the online graduation, all that mess. So the following August, we all got here, and it was like COVID restrictions everywhere. Like, the world was crazy. Everybody thought like it was gonna end, and we didn't know what was coming. So it was a crazy time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, how difficult was it coming in as a freshman? Not knowing or to expect what college is about, and having to deal with COVID at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like it was a lot. I feel like everyone, was kind of in a weird place, with their, mental health at that point. We were, coming into college, you don't know anybody, you don't know anything. And then on top of that, you have COVID, which is, we all went through an experience. It was crazy. And, even the University of Piedmont, they were trying to figure out how to navigate it and, trying to figure out what was going to be best for the students and the student athletes. And so, it was a little bit of a rocky time. I think that tensions were a little bit high during that time. And, we all wanted to get to college and live it up. And, we kind of weren't able to do that for a while because of the COVID restrictions. But I think we made the best of it, We were blessed despite the chaos of COVID. Yeah. So we made the best of it for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine, not gonna lie. COVID.
It was crazy. You had to, like, get tested. Like, we were getting tested, I think, weekly as athletes, to make sure that nobody, was infected or whatever. And then it was like if you popped positive, you had to leave for like 2 weeks. Like, I remember one time I tested positive, and it was like 60-something people on campus of the athletes tested positive, and I was like leaving the village where I lived, and I'm like looking around, and it's like a ghost town because everyone's like leaving because we all were getting banished because we were positive for COVID. It was crazy. It was so crazy, but we made it through for sure.
No, facts. But on to the next question. I'm actually very intrigued in asking you this question. Who or what got you into wanting to play the sport of tennis?
It's funny because I actually grew up playing basketball. Like,
really?
Yes, I did. And that was like always my passion. I loved it. Played it since rec league and everything. I actually didn't start playing tennis until 8th grade. And I think I kind of realized that basketball wasn't going to be, something I was going to be super successul at in college. I was all right, but, I wasn't all that. I was no Lou Wolfhawk, that's for sure.
Shout out.
But I had kind of always just played around a little bit with my family, just for fun. And I thought it was something that I could be good at. And I really liked the individuality part of the sport. It was something that I could go out there on the court by myself and compete as an individual. And, you're either winning by yourself or you're losing by yourself. Yeah. And it's a little different when you get to college because you are more so playing with the team. But at that time, I feel like that's what really drew me into the sport. And, I ended up just really loving it. And it worked out that I was able to get recruited by Trey, my senior year. So it worked out.
Yes. Speaking of Trey and getting recruited, I actually want to know, what made you come to Piedmont for tennis?
So in the midst of all the COVID craziness, Trey actually reached out to me. He had, I guess, somehow found me through my high school. I'm not really even sure how it worked out. I think he actually reached out to either my coach or my mom, I want to say, because tennis recruiting is a little bit odd because You play like these junior tournaments, and I don't know, it gets kind of complicated, but I never really did any of that. Like I pretty much just played through my school. And so I wasn't really, you know, having high hopes of getting any kind of crazy scholarships or anything. And I actually had my heart set on going to UGA. And I had applied and I had gotten in. And so I was, you know, like fully set on that, and then COVID happened, and my parents were a little bit adamant of sending me to Athens during that time. And then the opportunity to play tennis came along, and I didn't get to play my senior season of high school because COVID canceled it. And I just feel like I wasn't done, so I decided that I was going to come to Piedmont, and I was actually able to come to Piedmont on a visit that June of 2020. And you know, like all the campuses across the country were closed, but Trey was able to bring me up here for a visit. We had to wear masks and social distance and all that stuff, but fell in love with the campus, really liked Trey. We had some great conversations, and it seemed like they had a really good thing going here, so yeah, that's what led me here.
No, that's a good
and
story.
And the good Lord, for sure. Can't forget that, yeah.
When you were an athlete, what was your welcome to college moment?
Oh, I would say getting here and probably being introduced to all my teammates, because I was one of the last, and we had a huge incoming class of freshmen. Like there were 10 of us.
10?
And a typical tennis team is like 12 to 14 people. And so that was just our class alone. And so a lot of the girls had already met, actually, because they had been in the recruitment process their senior year. And a lot of them actually came for a recruitment weekend where they came and stayed with all the other girls that were already on the team. So they were already pretty well acquainted. And the only two people on the team that didn't know anyone was myself and Marion Sloyan, who was my roommate freshman year in Purcell. And we had never met. We had texted like very little over the summer, and so we got here, and it was kind of like, okay, you move into this room with this random girl you don't know. And I remember we were leaving for sail the first day that I got here, because Trey made us all do sail.
You did sail?
Yes,
as
I
a
did.
freshman?
I sure did.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so I remember like we moved in. It was pouring rain the day we moved in, and my mom and my sister were here helping me move in. And I just remember like I was crying. I was like, I do not want to be here. I was like shaking in my boots. Like I was so scared. And we went to the Cap to have dinner, and all the tennis girls were sitting at like one of the round tables together, and Marion and I went and sat by ourselves because we didn't know anyone. And so I feel like that was kind of like like the moment where it's like, oh, this is all new. You don't know anyone. Nobody knows you. But, you know, over the course of sail and, you know, the first couple weeks of college, you know, we all became really close. And so it worked out. But I just feel like it was that, you know, those first couple days of like you know, being intimidated by coming into a totally new experience. But, you know, I really found comfort in Marion, because we were in it together, you know, and we helped each other through. And then Leo came along. Leo Galarza came along, and we were kind of like a little trio there for a while, so it worked out.
No, in fact, I mean, sail was a great experience for me too. I'm not gonna lie, because I was just like you. I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't cry though. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't cry, but I was like,
good. I did.
I was like, oh my god, like it's new. I don't know nobody here. But then like I do want to appreciate like, you know, navigators like you, Silas, Lou, you know, Draylon, y'all all brought me in with open arms, made me feel comfortable, and, you know.
Sail's a great thing.
Now. Oh, absolutely, for sure. I actually got nominated again for it this year.
That's awesome.
So.
Yeah, that's great. Shout out to Enika, you know, she really, you know, puts on a good trip and everything, and I know so many people that have, like, good testimonies through Sail, and it's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shout out Ms. Dyer, man. I want to say thank you once again.
Yes.
But can you kind of talk to me about the difficulty of coming into college during the time of COVID, you know, because I know those times were really difficult, and the restrictions, you know, y'all had was probably out of this world.
They were. We had a lot of restrictions, and honestly, like, thinking back now, it's hard to even remember, but we had, like, we're wearing masks everywhere. Like, we were wearing them in the hallways, going to class. We were wearing them in the calf. Like, I'm talking about you go get your plate and sit down and want to get back up for another glass of Sprite or whatever. You got to put your mask on. And so, you know, that was difficult, and it was just weird because, you know, I expected to come into college and, you know, go sit down in these lectures and everything, but because of the pandemic, we did actually like a split schedule. So like 1 week you would be in class in front of your professor, and then the next week you would be online. And I feel like a lot of people would agree with me when I say that that really took a toll on our academic success, because you get college kids on Zoom and don't make them turn their cameras on. What are you going to do? You're going to turn that little Zoom on and you're going to go right back to sleep,
Facts.
It was hard to stay disciplined in that way. And of course, then obviously it affected athletics a lot because, we had traveling restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
You could only have like so many people in your dorm at one time. So it's not like the team was all getting together, and, having these big hangouts all the time because we really weren't allowed to. And they were pretty strict. I mean, understandably, we didn't know what, the effects of COVID were at that time. But, it was hard. And we really just had to lean on each other through it all and, just have faith that everything was going to work out. And it did, but it definitely wasn't the most fun of times, I will say that. And everybody was so tired of the masks by the end of my sophomore year. I think it just got to the point where, we realized that was no way to live because it's not, So.
Facts. That's why I was really intrigued and really getting to know like the restrictions during the season y'all had. I don't know, so it's probably crazy.
We had a lot, and we didn't get to play several of our matches because certain schools, weren't letting their players play pretty much whatsoever. I think that there was even like talk about a couple matches of us like we had to wear a mask while we played. And we were like, y'all, this is ridiculous. I don't think we ever did. I think that a couple of those schools that were requiring that, we kind of just, cut those matches out of our schedule. But Piedmont was actually really flexible compared to a lot of other schools in letting us still travel and still play. So we were really fortunate, honestly, by the administration here at Piedmont.
Well, we can fast forward to your senior year, Last year, the team went 24-4, finishing with a 7-0 record in conference. Who can you credit to y'all having such a successful year last year, even winning the conference championship ring?
Yeah, I think, there are a lot of people, that contributed to the team's success for sure. I think first and foremost, Trey. His ability to recruit good players, especially at the D3 level, is honestly really, I respect it a lot because, he brought in has a lot of good players during my time at Piedmont. Obviously, Abby Grace Benham, she was a really, really strong player on our team all 4 years. She ended up being player of the year a couple times, and, she killed it at line 1. The whole time we were here, I mean, she was just a great player. I mean, she's like the type of player that she goes out on the court and you just know she's going to win. It doesn't matter who she's playing, she's going to find a way to pull it out. And she had grit and strength and the athleticism to pull it off. So her for sure. Dakota Wilkes, she was a really strong player, both in our doubles and singles lineup, and she had the fire for sure. She had the attitude of a good tennis player. And she also had a lot of good leadership qualities, and she led our team as captain a couple years, and she did a really great job with that. Marion, she was awesome as well. Just super consistent all around. Another good leader on our team. She was super involved at Piedmont, and she had the spirit that she was able to bring everybody together. So that definitely helped. And I think all of our teammates, in some way contributed to our winning record, whether or not they were on the court. There's a lot that goes into having a winning season. It's not just what you do on the court.
It's off the court as well, just as important,
absolutely.
For sure. You finished your senior season winning the CCS conference tournament. How did it feel to finish your tennis career out on top?
It was awesome, and my sophomore year, I would say, was actually my most memorable year. We were coming off the loss to NC Westland our freshman year. We were a fairly young team at that point. Our lineup was composed mainly of sophomores and juniors. And at that point, we had Methodist and Averett in our conference, and they were both really strong teams. And Methodist, they were always our rival, I mean, it was always our loudest match, our most competitive match. And we went out there in the conference semifinals, and we actually lost all 3 doubles lines. So we went into our singles down 0-3. And then Amani Vincent was playing line 1. She was a great player of the year 2 times in her career at Piedmont. She was awesome, but she ended up losing the line 1, so it came down to the last 4 singles. Or 5, excuse me, and somehow we pulled it out, and it was a great year. And so I think coming off of that really propelled us into the wins my junior and senior year. I think that really gave us the confidence that we needed to know that we could be winners, and especially at the collegiate level as a young team. But it was great to finish, with winning a conference championship. I think it really rounded off the career pretty nicely. It feels good.
No, facts for sure. Next question. Can you tell me the impacts? I know you've been talking about Coach Martin and how he kind of got you and how he's been always supportive of you and your teammates. Can you tell me the impact Coach Martin has had on you individually and your team overall last year?
Yeah, I think that he, provided a really strong support system for the team for sure. I mean, he always was looking for opportunities to get everybody out on the court, and obviously he, was really supportive of our top 6 girls and always wanted them to be successful. But I think what really shows Trey's character is that he wanted everybody to have an opportunity to play.
Yeah.
He was always trying to get people out there to play, conference lines and get them that experience that they needed and the confidence, to make them better tennis players. And I think with that being said, his real goal was to make us into better individuals. And I definitely was, a better person, a more mature athlete, and just individual in general. From my freshman and senior year, learning from Trey, he did a lot for us, and a lot goes unnoticed, but I think especially in hindsight, I can look back and see all the sacrifices that he made for our team. Even just taking time out of his personal schedule to, cater to our needs. And he's just the type of person that, if I called him up right now and I'm like, hey, Trey, I need help, he would be right there, So it's pretty awesome to have had a coach that, cared about us in that way. And then, I know he's going to be a friend for life, so it's pretty cool for sure.
Yeah, speaking of Coach Trey, I actually just forgot. Congratulations. I heard you just won Coach of the Year in CCS. So congrats on that, Coach. I totally forgot about that.
I swear he gets it every year.
No.
Nobody's surprised at this point.
I forgot you won. I'm not going to lie. I think they just came out with that yesterday.
Yeah, right? They did. I think several Piedmont girls got honors, so it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, congrats to all of y'all for sure. I mean, y'all all deserve it. But
absolutely.
On to the mental side questions, though, Brooke. My first question for you is, did you ever feel like mental health was important in the sports world, and why?
Absolutely. I actually think it's one of the most important things of being an athlete, because if your mind's not right, your body's not going to be right, and that's going to affect you, in every aspect. And I think that here at Piedmont, we have a really good culture and really good community of, promoting mental health and, wellness. And I think that's been awesome for all the athletes here, because that's really where it starts, it's your mental health and your confidence and your perspective for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. My next question for you, Brooke, has there ever been a moment throughout your sports career where your mental health was affected by something outside of your sport that either affected you while you were on the court or just something in your sport that affected you? Yeah,
absolutely. I would say the main thing for me over my time at Piedmont was probably my academics. I'm a pretty type A person, and so, I was pretty hard on myself about my grades. And I knew that I was wanting to get into school post-grad, so I knew that I had to stay disciplined and make really good grades, and, balancing that with, investing into your sport and really setting aside the time to improve and do well. It can be a lot, to carry sometimes. So I definitely think that was what affected my mental health the most. And, if I was stressed out about an exam or something like that, it definitely, translated to the way that I played tennis. If I could look back and, give myself a piece of advice, I would be just chill out, because your sport is supposed to be a release from all of your stress. And I think a lot of times where we go wrong as athletes is we carry that stress on the court or the field or, whatever the case may be, when, that's not the way. But again, I had a really good support system. Trey and my teammates, always encouraged me, and we always try to encourage each other, to be successful and, be disciplined, but not be too hard on yourself, and just enjoy the sport, regardless of what you have going on outside of it.
No, that's real for sure. I think you just actually answered probably the last question I had for you.
A little ahead of the game.
My next question, though, what makes having confidence an important factor being an athlete that you were?
Oh, I think when you are in any competition, whether it be sports, or whatever, confidence is probably the most important factor. I can look back at times, where I was the best tennis player, technically, but my confidence levels were low. And so I wasn't winning, I wasn't doing well. And then I can look back at times where, I might not have been at my best technically, but I was in a really good place mentally. And, I was really confident and I was playing great tennis. So I definitely think that to be the best version of yourself as an athlete, you definitely have to, get a hold of your confidence and, you know, make sure that that's in check, because it definitely translates for sure. Because if you're not sure of yourself when you go out there, you know, you're not going to be as successful as you can be.
Yeah, no, that's real for sure. Can you kind of talk to me about the mental toll the sport of tennis has had on you as a student athlete overall? 'Cause I know you kind of talked about it before, but can you like really go in depth and elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that, you know, at times over my tennis career, I would get kind of caught up in the stress of, oh, I have this exam coming up, and then I have this match, and we're traveling this weekend, and, you know, all these things. And, you know, that did stress me out. I think, you know, I probably grew a couple gray hairs over it. But again, it does. But now that I've graduated and I look back, like, I honestly wish I would have just soaked it in even just a little bit more and enjoyed it a little bit more and just kind of let loose, because you know, especially when you play at the Division III level, you know, we're not out here, you know, competing for the national championship, and we're not, you know, having NIL deals and making money and all this stuff. So I think what it's really about is the experience and enjoying everything that's, you know, around you, and, you know, realizing all these things that you have that you're so blessed by. And I think a lot of us realized that as we approached graduation last year, because we're like, oh my gosh, it's over, you know, like all these great times we've had over the last 4 years, you know, it does come to an end. So I think the most important thing is really just, you know, soaking that in and enjoying that. And I think that, you know, that was the best part of my, you know, whole college career was, you know, all the experiences that I had with the people around me. And, you know, they were really able to lift me up the most, you know, when I was at my lowest, you know, whether that be personal stuff going on or academics or, you know, losing on the court, you know. When I look back, the stuff that helped me the most was, you know, all my teammates and all my friends and everything, and community. And that's really what it's about.
I mean, speaking of community, you know, I've seen you at church a couple times.
Right.
I actually just seen you, like, was it Wednesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing service.
It was awesome. Good into the semester for sure.
Absolutely. But as someone who's heavy on faith, can you kind of tell me the impact God has had on you as an athlete and even as a person?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's everything. You know, as a believer, you know, we, you know, need to look inward and realize that everything we do, you know, should be a result of our faith. And I think that, you know, beyond even, you know, my teammates and my community and everything, what helped me the very most, you know, was my faith in Jesus Christ, for sure. You know, if it's not for him, then, you know, it's for nothing. So, you know, and through all the hard times, you know, I realized that, you know, he was building me, you know, he was, you know, building me up to be a result of something greater. And I think that really being in touch with your faith, especially as an athlete, is super important, because, you know, I think a lot of people get caught up in, you know, the materialistic side of sports and, you know, oh, I'm going to be great and win all these championships. And, you know, it sort of becomes a pride thing, you know, like how good and how cool can I look to others, when in reality, like, we're not going out there to play for anybody except for, you know, the Lord, and showing grace and compassion to your opponents and to your teammates, and, you know, just really trying to go out there and uplift the kingdom. I think that's really what it's all about. But that for me was my rock, you know, always has and always will be. So
yeah, God is good. He's the greatest for sure.
Amen, forever and ever.
Last question on the mental side. Do you think the sport of tennis has helped shape or grow you as a person?
Absolutely. You know, it's funny looking back, because when I reflect on the player and the person that I was as a freshman at 18 years old, I'm like, it's like a 180 to who I am now. And, you know, there were hard times, there were good times. There were times when I went on the court and pitched a fit and acted, you know, like a fool. But, you know, I had people like Trey who kept me in check, and, you know, made me realize that, you know, I need to grow up a little bit, and, you know, it's not all about you, and it's not all about winning and losing. You know, there's something to be said for, you know, victories and losses. And, you know, I think a lot of times it's the losses that makes you grow as an athlete and as a person more than the wins do, for sure. But, you know, it helped me tremendously being an athlete. I think it helped me grow up so much more, especially with, like, the team side of it, you know, because you're having to work alongside all these other girls and all your teammates, and, you know, you have to, you know, sometimes put your wants and needs aside, and do what's best for the team, not for, you know, what's best for you as an individual. So, you know, I grew up tremendously in the last 4 years, and I think that tennis was a big part of that, for sure.
No, facts. That's real for sure. On to the burner questions though. First
Okay.
question for you is: did you have any other offers coming out of high school outside of Piedmont?
So, like I said, I wasn't a big tournament player or anything like that. So I didn't have, offers coming in the mail just stacking up or anything like that. I looked into a couple other schools like Reinhardt, Shorter, small schools kind of like Piedmont. But ultimately, like none of them, felt like home like Piedmont did.
Yeah.
So I definitely ended up where I was supposed to be.
Who's the most wild or funny on the team?
Oh goodness, there's a lot of wild and funny people that I played with. But honestly, the ones that stick out to me the most are Abby, Grace, and Marion, and my best friend Danny Evans. She's awesome. She actually is playing right now. She's a grad student in the conference tournament. She got second team honorary this year, so
Congrats.
Yeah, she's doing great this year. She's really stepped up for her team. It's been a strong line 6 for them when they played Asbury in the regular season. She really stepped up and she was rolling in that match and she killed it. But she's hilarious. She was my companion on all the tennis trips, so we were always rooming together and sitting beside each other on the bus. And then you have all the guys players too, Jack and Mike and Silas. You can't forget about them.
They really brought me up
awesome.
my freshman year last year.
Yeah, they're a mess. I mean, we had so many good times. It was a great group. Like, we really were blessed with so many good people. I miss them, and it was great times.
I think Silas is actually a assistant coach for women's team.
Yeah, he is, and he's a great coach too, especially on the technical level. And he's a really good encourager, and motivator. I mean, he was always a little hype man. Anyways, and he was a great tennis player too, still is. But he's a great coach, and I think all the girls have really enjoyed having him this year.
Yeah, interesting you say motivator. He always, cause he was my navigator last year.
Oh, so, yeah, that's right.
Motivator-wise, it's a very interesting word of choice.
Oh, goodness. We won't get into all that, Silas. Don't worry.
On to the next question, though. Favorite music artist for you currently or all the time?
Oh, well, I listen to a lot of music. Mainly, like, soft rock, pop. I do like a little bit of country, and I hate to be cliche, and you're going to laugh at me. I can see it all over your face, but I am a Taylor Swift fan.
Oh, my God.
And I'll take it to my grave.
That's too straight. I interviewed Avery earlier in the week, and she said Taylor Swift,
Let's
too.
go. Yeah. It's just, you got to, I mean, I've loved her since I was like 5 years old, and I'm never going to change, so I am who I am, and I'm going to be honest about it.
Oh, no, that's real. No, don't be ashamed of it. So you're a Swiftie?
I would say I'm not a Swiftie, but I'm a Taylor Swift fan. I feel like Swifties get a bad rap, you know what I mean? I don't want to be roped in with that, but I do love her music, for sure.
Okay, that's what's up. Next question for you, though. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where are you traveling to?
Oh, goodness. There are so many places that I would like to go. I would say right now, like, the number one place on my bucket list is Iceland, because I want to go. Yeah, because I want to see the Northern Lights.
Wait.
Yes. So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. But I mean, there are so many places that I want to see, and that I haven't seen yet. So I'm excited. Danny and I are going to New York at the end of May. So
for real?
My first time going to New York, so I'm excited about that. Yeah.
It's so nice out there. I'm not gonna lie. They look disrespectful, but I mean, it's nice.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be able to fit in with them with my little Southern accent, but we'll see how it goes. Stay tuned.
If you go into a gas station for snacks, what 3 items you walking out with?
3 items. Well, my number 1 is Mike and Ike's, my favorite candy.
Okay.
Probably Goldfish would be number 2. And then my drink of choice is a classic Coke.
Okay, that's very simple.
Yeah.
Very simple.
But sometimes that's the best way to be,
Yeah, that's facts for sure. If you're stranded on an island, what 3 things you making sure you have with you?
Classic question.
It begin people though.
Yeah, I would say number 1 for me would be chapstick. Like, I cannot go without the chapstick. I know that's like first world problems, but oh my gosh, I'll be dying without it. I do stay carrying my water bottle everywhere. So if I could have that, I don't know if that's like an option, but I would probably say that. No,
you can bring somebody too if you want to.
Oh, if I can bring somebody, then I'm bringing my girl Danny.
Danny?
Yeah, or Lou. Where you at, Lou? Oh, come on, I'm bringing both of them.
No, that's valid for sure. I didn't have people say Meg Thee Stallion,
Angela
Reese, all of that.
Yeah, I didn't even think about celebrities, but I think I would rather have my girlfriends than a celeb,
No, that's real for sure, man. Shout out Danny and Lou for sure.
Absolutely.
But my last question for you, Brook, and I do appreciate you coming on the pod.
That's awesome.
If you could look back and give your younger self advice, I know you kind of already answered this question, but what would it be?
I would just say to my younger self, don't get so caught up in the small things, make sure to keep perspective. I feel like as I look back, especially when I was younger, 18, 19, I would have this tiniest little problem, like an exam or something like that. And if I wouldn't do well, I would act like it's the end of the world, and, I think a really good piece of advice is that if it's not something that's going to affect your life in 5 years, let it go. Don't stress about it and don't worry about it. And I think that's really proven to be true in my life. Now that I'm not in college anymore and I miss all my people and we're not around each other all the time, I wish I would have just appreciated it a little bit more. And I appreciated it, and I know that I did. But I don't think that I appreciated it enough, So I feel like if I could go back to 2020 and give myself one piece of advice going into college, it would definitely be to just, soak it all in and enjoy it, because, it is going to end one day. And it's sad, there's good and bad in growing up, but it is bittersweet for sure.
No, facts, man. That's for that's a good one, not gonna lie. But before I end the pod, like I said, I did sell last year as a navigator, and thank you, Miss Dyer, to nominating me to be a navigator once again.
Absolutely, you're gonna kill it.
Oh, for sure. I'm already knowing. We got a better campsite this year and everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, because when you were a freshman, I don't know.
For real, I actually liked it better. No, Brooke, you had to come to the one we had this past year.
Where were y'all at?
I don't even remember what the spot was called, but it was.
I'm glad I was there then. It was spooky.
It was questionable. But what I used to do with my navigators, my voyagers, before we left our cabins or whatever, is kind of tell them let's be great today as a motivation and a good luck charm or positivity, So on 3, if you could look with me in the camera and say let's be great today, that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. All right. I'm ready.
All right, bet. 3, 2, 1. Let's be great today. Yes, sir. Thank you, Brooke. I appreciate you coming on the pod. All right, LiveTap family, that is the end of the Brook Patton episode, but y'all stay tuned next
for having
week.
Me.
No, for sure. Y'all stay tuned next week because sadly, the school year is ending. It's my last episode next week. I have Piedmont men swimmers Eric Fordner and Leo Farrell coming on the pod, so I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in this whole school year, man. I'm going to be back next year as well. But for now, y'all stay blessed out there, and let's be great today.